boys and girls, March 8th, the International Women's Day today. Very cold here in Ontario, still very cold, as you can probably tell by my hat. And yesterday I spent the first night in the truck, and I think the shop forgot to turn off the light over the door on the driver's side, and it took me a while to figure out how to operate them, you know. Like on the Mac, there was a separate switch right next to the light. On KENWORTH, the switch is built right into the body of the light, you know. And at first, like, how do you turn them off, you know? I don't see any switch. And I look at the dash. All the dash does is turn on the light in your sleeper. But on the dash, there's nothing about the truck anyway. You know, it's just that it's been a very, very long time since I drove a KENWORTH. Like I mentioned before, I only drove like a 3-ton or 5-ton tow truck, T300 ages ago. And even the same truck, you know, they change all the time. So something as simple as a light switch. But what happens is that if you, like, I'm pretty sure they forgot it, because I remember when we started the truck from the dealer, when I started leaving the dealer, and then when I came here, that light was on, and I remember I did not touch it, right? And so I don't want to idle, you know. I hate idling because it causes premature, you know, aging of the engine. Plus I have a heater, right? And so I started the heater, and that's another adventure. So the heater in this thing is pretty cool. It's not like the regular one I'm used to, where you just adjust the temperature, you know, by rotating the knob, and there's no set temperature. It's just, you know, one of those blue and red, you know, color schemes where you choose how hot you want it to be. And of course, it's basically manual, right? But this one, everything on this truck is climate controlled. Like the AC, you set the temperature, and turns out the bunk heater, which was yesterday, was my first time with this. This is SPAR. It's not Webasto, what I'm used to. This is SPAR, and there's a temperature there. And I see it's already preset at 72 degrees Fahrenheit. You know, everything is in F. Okay, 72 sounds good, right? Yesterday was -5 Celsius, which is what, 18 divided by 2, 9, 32 minus 9, 30 minus 7, 23. 23 F, you know, pretty cold. And the sky is like, this is the sky, you know, very ugly, like there's still snow on the ground, you know, and I parked next to my truck. And so yeah, I start the heater. I can hear it starts humming, brr, you know, and then, but then when I know it's supposed to be like pretty loud. It's like something spinning inside, like a little turbo, you know, when it's working. And I put my hand under the bunk where I know the vents are, and the air is still cool, you know, and basically it tries to spin, you know, increase the speeds, and boom, it's kind of like shuts down. And I see the light, like there's red and green. I see the green disappears, now it's only red. And I look at the screen of that little gizmo, and it gives me all kinds of error messages, you know, like codes. And there's one verbal message, says cannot ignite, you know, kind of like almost like I feel like I'm on you know, launching a space rocket, you know, like cannot ignite, no ignition. Okay, I know this happens. I had the same on my Mac, so I try again. Second time, again, no hot air. It shuts down before it reaches full spinning thing, spinning RPM. And then third time, I try again, and then I just, you know, I type a message to the sales guy. I said, you know, nice, first night in the truck, it's super cold, and I cannot start the heater. And he says, oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to forward your message to our service department. And, you know, here's the email address. Just, you know, try to get in touch with them tomorrow, which is today. And then something occurred to me. I remember I had the same thing with my Webasto in the Mac. Is basically when the temperature is set in the medium somewhere, in the middle, sometimes the heater doesn't want to start, especially if the truck has been sitting, you know, for a long time and you never use that heater, or like in this case it's a brand new truck, right? So, and I'm thinking, like, what are the chances that a brand new heater does not work, you know? And so what I do is I go back to the temperature setting, and I crank that red arrow, which is up, and the blue one is down, meaning cooler, and I continuously push that red button and I see the temperature starts rising, 72, 73, 74, and I went all the way to the maximum till I could see that the numbers stopped changing, and the maximum was, I believe, 92F. And so I set 92 and I click enable again, and guess what, this thing starts working, you know. So I guess it's just, you know, too new to work properly. You have to set up highest temperature first and then adjust it. But yeah, I should check the manual. I saw the manual somewhere here, and that's, oh yeah, and then I started that one and it worked fine for like 15 minutes. It was really warm inside the cab, and then something catches my eye on the dash, like the truck was off, of course, and I see something is illuminated on the dash of the truck, and I see something in yellow, like, you know, not a nice color, some kind of a warning, and it says low battery voltage, like low battery voltage, and it says disconnect load or start the engine. And by load, of course, they mean whatever is taking the power, in this case the S-bar heater. And so the heater went out by itself, and I started the engine, warmed it, I ran it till like 10-15 minutes till I saw the coolant, you know, went high enough. But that's what I started to talk about when I mentioned the light, you know. I think they left the light, and the truck was sitting probably for a week, you know, between after they did the fenders and when the PTO was done, and maybe they left it on. Like, even, you know, tiny thing like this, it can, you know, drain your battery, you know, over like 10 days or 2 weeks. I know once I left a Mac like that, I left the radio on, you know, like the volume was all the way down, but the radio was on. And I came back after like 10 days, I think, or a week or so in winter, and the battery was dead. I had to call somebody from the, you know, Vision Truck Group. But that is done, everything is cool. Oh yeah, and this thing, I love how this truck comes with the power locks, you know, just the same as on my car, right? So you got a fob like this, right? So you can unlock, lock, you know, and you get 2 of these, and you get 3 regular keys. So basically each Kenworth truck now comes with 5 keys, you know, 2 this style and 3 regular. And so, and another interesting feature the sales guy showed me is that when you lock doors, let's say if you want to push the lock button on the door, you know, before closing the door, what's interesting is that Kenworth is so into these little details, and they want to prevent the driver from being locked out. So when you push that lock button on the driver's side door, only the passenger side door locks. Can you believe this? Like, this is amazing. So basically, you let's say you made a mistake and you push that button, you close the driver's door, and it's still open. So you have to either use your key or you have to use this remote here, right? And then all doors are locked. So very cool, you know. And that's what I spent this morning. Basically, I got all these manuals in here, but the most 2 important ones are this red one, of course, is just like the color of the Cummins engine. The red one is for the Cummins, and I learned all about, you know, intervals, like service intervals. And then this one is for the truck itself. This one is pretty cool, like tells you know how to, the procedure, what they recommend, how long to warm up the engine, how to do it. Actually, it's a bit different from what Mac was saying. Like, they wanted to run the engine, for example, for the first 3 minutes at full idle, you know, like 600 RPM, and only then you can increase it to, let's say, 900 to 1000 RPM, and till you reach, I think it was like 50 degrees Celsius. I think it's like 130 F or something. But that 600 RPM was a bit different. Basically, they say keep an eye on the oil pressure, you know, oil temperature, stuff like that. But you know, I always read these like at least once when I get a new truck, because you can pick up some nice pointers in here. And it looks like the oil change intervals are going to be pretty much the same as with the Mac, except that if my mileage drops, you know, maybe drops below 5, then I should do oil changes more often. Not like with the Mac, I did them 25,000 miles. And with this one, if it's 5 or more, then it's fine. But if it's below 5 miles per gallon, then I gotta change. I gotta switch to more frequent oil changes. Oh yeah, 5.5. So 5.5 to 6.5, they recommend 35,000 miles, and 3 to 5.5 miles, they recommend 25,000 miles. So that's what I've been doing on the Mac. And I do think that my mileage will be at least 3 to 5.5, but you know, it's a big engine, so I expect the fuel mileage can be a bit worse than on the Mac. But on the Mac from day one, it was 5.9 miles per gallon US, right? But despite all this, I was looking at the track manual, and I discovered that they want you to come in after around 15,000 miles for the first checkup, kind of like, you know, doctor appointment. They say 15,000 miles or first oil change, but 15 is pretty low, and so that's what I'm gonna do. Like 15,000 miles, there's a bunch of tables in here that say what you should do, like at 15, 30, 45,000 miles, you know, like some, not just oil changes, but the other stuff. Like for example, at this first service at 15,000, they recommend, like, again, the table shows you check all axle alignments, you know, I think it's grease the drive shaft and change the oil in the differentials, which I know is expensive, but that's what they wanted to do after 15,000 miles. And then there's, like, I think U-bolts on the suspension and some other stuff. Oh, and one more thing, like, actually the first thing I'll have to do is it's not even the truck, it's not the oil, but it's the suspension. Like on this one, I got this cool New Way ADZ or ADZ, as we say in Canada, suspension, and it came with this little sticker over here. No, that one is for the fifth wheel, but it came with this little sticker. Check this out. New Way, and it says required retorquing schedule. All fasteners after first 100 hours of service or 5,000 miles, you know. And so actually that's the first thing I'm gonna do. So 5,000 miles, since I don't idle, I'll just look at the miles, or 8,000 kilometers. I'm gonna do this, okay. And another thing I've been doing, so I read all this, and I went to Staples, so I made sure all my binders, I put back all my papers that I used to send to the IRP, you know, International Plate Permit Office. I put them back, made sure everything is in order, that, you know, if I stop by DOT, I have everything under control. And then I also bought another notepad, like I bought blue one, like blue color, I bought for my fuel purchases. So I'm gonna write down, you know, location, and it's all, I all did like different states. Every 2 pages was a new state by ABC, you know. This one I did, the smaller one, it'll be for miles, or kilometers. Kilometers, I'll just write down my odometer in kilometers each time I cross a state or province line, you know. So this will be for IFTA, but IFTA report is due on April 31st for January, February, March, and because January, February I was not tracking, right, and now it's already 8th of March, so this particular report for IFTA will be real easy, because it'll be only for like 3 weeks in March, you know. But still, I got this, so everything is, you know, there's like a million things that you gotta do when you have a brand new truck. And now basically what I realized yesterday when I was, you know, spent the first night, and I went to my friend where all my things have been in storage, and just in my car, and I picked up a sleeping bag, you know, at least. And I slept on the top bunk because it was a bit warmer than at the bottom, but it was still cold, you know, cold. In the morning I like went back to Starbucks to warm up my bones, and so But that reminded me that I have a bunch of stuff in here in my car, since I've been driving around to Florida and back, right? I got a bunch of stuff that actually belongs to the truck, you know. And so now it's still cold, but I know I was waiting till it warms up a little bit, but I think now it's -3 Celsius, you know, like 28 F. And that's what I'm doing. I need to move all my stuff inside the truck and get ready for tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm getting signs, you know. Oh, and one more thing I gotta do is actually one more research I've been doing, extremely important, which probably those 20 minutes I spent sending and exchanging emails with some permit companies that I'm working with will probably add $30,000 to my revenue in this year for sure. Basically, what I was trying to find out is how much weight I can carry, you know, because this truck has a much beefier front axle. The spacings are different than on the Mac, right? And that's what I'm gonna do now. I bought a little notepad, you know, just like for quick notations, but also I'm gonna use it to write down my I have that file, wheels and axles, and I'm just gonna write down, you know, just to confirm all my tire sizes, maximum tire load, so I know when I go to Cal Tire to check all tires, because you know the trailer has been sitting here since December. That's last thing I'm gonna do before I book a load, just check all tires and you know, all air pressure. And so I'm gonna write down all my spacings right now on the truck, all my tire sizes, maximum weight on each tire, because these are different than on the Mac, right? And speaking about weights, that's the important research I've been doing. I'm trying to find out definitively like where my flip axle is useful and where it's not useful, you know, because since I got it in 2016, I hardly did one load that actually required the flip axle with the company where I was an owner operator. And so finally I decided, wait a second, so why am I keep carrying this axle? So let's figure out like what's my limit, you know, which states I can go to where this flip axle can be of value, because then of course I'm gonna focus on these particular states, because typically the more weight you carry, the better your rates are, you know. And so I've been bugging these two permit companies, the old one and that I used to work with, and the new one that I'm switching to. And finally the new one, actually the old one, said, oh, it'll take a while. I said, well, take your time. If you could get me this info before next week when I'm planning to hit the road, I said that would be great. And then the new company this morning just sent me like a little presentation, PowerPoint presentation with only 4 sheets, which showed kind of like what I had at Landstar. I once did a video about this, like how much you can carry on a tandem, tridem, and quad axle, basically on a trailer or a truck, which was helpful, but it's not extremely useful. But then his second email, he sent me some super top secret info, basically based on the total amount of axles. Like I never saw something like this, but he sent me all these sheets, like let's say total your whole rig, 5 axles, 6, 7, 8 plus 1, meaning with a spreader, like 8 axles, but there's a spreader, then 8 and 4, like my setup, 4 in the back, and then 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way to 13 axles. And each of those sheets shows the map of US. Like nothing is about Canada, but it's color coded for US. And like I couldn't believe it that I see the opportunity over here, you know. I see how the flip axle, where I can go and pick up heavy loads. And then I see if I do upgrade to a spreader bar, which will put this flip axle, let's say like 14 or whatever, 13 feet beyond the trailer, that will give me another extra area in US where I can go, you know. And I'm very excited about this because, you know, like my 2 recent favorite sayings are, you only as old as you weigh, And number 2 is information is money. Okay, so if you don't know where you can go, you know, like let's say you see a load on the load board, it says 100,000 pounds. So you call the agent or the broker and you say, oh, I have 8 axles, do you think it'll work? And the guy will, like 9 cases out of 10, he or she has no idea what kind of equipment you need for this, you know. And yeah, you book it and then you call your permit company, and that's only when permit company says, oh well, your permit application has been refused, you need 10 more axles, you know, like as an example. So permit companies, they know this, but a lot of them they don't know much actually. But somebody I believe that if it's a good permit service company, there's at least one individual there that is better trained than the others, you know, maybe like the boss or somebody who's been doing it for a very, very long time, and you can get that info from them, you know. But it's real critical for heavy haul, and I'm excited that I'm hoping to break 100,000 pounds payload. You know, until now, if somebody, you know, has been on my channel for a while, you know that my biggest load was John Deere, what is it, 400 something excavator out of Buffalo, New York, going to Aurora, Ontario, or Newmarket, Ontario, and it was either 92,000 pounds or 93. It's the one where they did not forget, but they didn't bother moving the tracks. Like, they could have made that excavator much more narrow. And now if I was doing that load, I would refuse to take it that wide, because first of all, it was you know, tricky to load this thing, and secondly, because it was so wide, it required an escort, and that's a bunch of money, you know. So it turns out only later I found out that on that kind of a machine you can, but it would take them a whole day, you know, to move those tracks. You need special equipment. But anyway, so that was, until now, that was my biggest load, 92,000 pounds. And I always wanted to come at least like close to 100,000, and with this new data that I have, I'm pretty confident that I can do that. Okay, so let's move this stuff in the truck and get ready for tomorrow. And then maybe later on I'll do kind of like, I'll show you when it's maybe now it's already getting late, like the light is already, even though it's only what, like 4 o'clock over here in Canada, but yeah, 3:45. But I'll show you guys like do a detailed video inside. I still have to read the manuals, you know, familiarize myself with the dash, you know, all these controls, and we'll do a video about the basically inside the cab. I'll show you where everything is, you know, like how comfortable the sleeper is, all the amenities. That will be my next video, and then maybe we'll do a separate video about the engine, because turns out this engine comes in 2 flavors, so to speak. One is performance, and one is I think efficiency or something like that. But basically, one is designed for fuel economy, and the other one is designed for horsepower. And of course, as you probably guessed, mine is performance series, you know. So